I'll be joined by Gene Farrell. There he is. And we'll talk a little bit of Smartsheet and a little bit of Gene. Just a little bit of background on Smartsheet. Smartsheet was a startup itself with a small team not too long ago. And on its first launch year, Smartsheet attracted 10,000 users, which was far less than expected. So the team retrenched, simplified the product, and relaunched 2 years later. And with that slight pivot, Smartsheet pulled in 1 million users in 2012. And after that crucible moment, the company went on to raise $120 million from venture capital and went public in 2018. Today, Smartsheet has grown to 7 million users and is valued on the public market around $6 billion. Gene, you joined Smartsheet 3 years ago, and the company has grown tremendously during that time, and you have been one of the key leaders during that journey. Around the time you joined, Smartsheet raised a Series F, which valued the business at around $800 million. And now, 3 years later, it's a public company at around $6 billion. So it would be great to hear your experience of this journey. And I thought where we could start is, how does a Coca-Cola sales guy from Atlanta become a software chief officer?
Yeah, that's probably a pretty interesting journey, actually. So, Ashkan, I started really my career in sales and marketing. I worked for Coca-Cola for the first half of my career in a bunch of different roles, but I had an opportunity late in my career there to actually be part of an internal startup that built a kind of innovative fountain machine called Coca-Cola Freestyle. So if you've ever been to a Five Guys or a Jack in the Box or at AMC Theaters, you probably experienced Freestyle. It's this touchscreen fountain that has like 150 different brands in it. And through that experience, it was about a 6-year journey, taking that from idea to actual product. And we had to build a whole new supply chain. It was all the software, the hardware, the design, everything involved. And so when we went through that process, I realized that I'd missed my calling. Maybe you call it mid-career, midlife crisis, but I realized that my calling was really building businesses and building products. And so I decided after having that experience to leave Coca-Cola and come back west. I was in Atlanta at the time, come back west and get into technology. I had a lot of partners at Coke that were in the tech industry that told me, they said, hey, you should come out to the Valley or get out to Seattle, do something. And so I realized it'd be pretty hard to transition into a small company right away. And so I went and joined AWS. AWS was somehow I convinced them to give me an opportunity to go build cloud services. So soda salesman to cloud service developer, and started with Amazon. Amazon Workspaces was the first service that I built. It's a virtual desktop in the cloud. And I spent 5 years there really building a bunch of different services for enterprise. And from there had an opportunity at a kind of a pivotal point for Smartsheet, where Mark Mader, our CEO, was really looking for someone with strong product and business experience to help kind of take the company to the next level and be part of his team that he recruited to take the company public. And so joined about 3.5 years ago, and I guess it was about 11 months after I joined, we had our IPO, and we've been on a kind of a tear ever since. We IPO'd at just a little over 100 million, and we'll do 370 something, I think, is our current analyst estimates for the year. So been a nice growth ride.
Yeah, it's a great path. And so given that this conference is the Remote Startup Expo, I want to start with the startup part of it. Could you share a little bit of what fueled the revenues from kind of the beginnings to the first 100 million? Because that's obviously the hardest and kind of craziest part of the journey. Would love to hear what you could share on that.
Yeah, it's a great question. And, a big part of that, I would tell you there's probably a couple phases there. The first few years, the company went through a search, if you will, for product market fit. The company was really founded by a group of folks that originally had founded and launched a company called Onyx Software, was a CRM competitor back in the day with the Siebel systems and and Salesforce. And one of the things that they noticed, even as they were building and deploying these big CRM systems, was that tons of work was still happening in spreadsheets and email and all these kind of hand tools that knowledge workers have been using really since, you know, kind of they moved digital into having laptops. So they recognized that there was something there to providing folks an easy to understand, intuitive spreadsheet-like interface for managing, configuring, tracking work, but they weren't really, you know, they weren't really sure exactly how to go build that. And so the initial iteration, if you will, of Smartsheet was a little bit complex and a little hard to kind of find product market fit. And so what they ended up doing was pivoting and did a restaging of the product and simplified quite a bit. And it was the restaged product that actually started to get fit. And then once they got a little bit of signal, they invested pretty aggressively in a free trial motion and kind of go-to-market growth plays with assisted sales. And that was really the rocket fuel, right? I think they went from maybe 20 million to 100 million over the course of about 18 months. And it just was a really, really fast ramp, mostly because they kind of hit that product market fit, and then they added the fuel for the market. The TAM that we go after is really large, and one of the unique things about Smartsheet is it has a very viral motion to how it gets adopted. Our model is that if you have a Smartsheet license, you can create sheets and dashboards and reports and workflows and whatever you want to build in Smartsheet. And you can share it with collaborators, and they don't have to have a license to be able to see your work and be able to contribute. And so the idea was that licensed users can be the workflow or the process owner, and everybody else can kind of contribute for free, with the idea that once you see the power, you're going to want a license. And that kind of played out. So what would happen is they would land in a company in maybe one department, and because of the viral nature, other departments would discover Smartsheet and want to adapt it themselves. And so, you know, some of our largest customers today that pay us millions of dollars a year started out on a $700 a year team plan with, you know, 3 or 4 people using the product. And so that was really kind of the motion that got us started. And then over time, obviously, we've developed enterprise sales motion and more complex sales plays, and we've dramatically expanded the product surface area to cover kind of an ever increasing set of use cases, as well as being able to move kind of up the stack to more complex, kind of what I'll call mission critical use cases for large customers. But I would say the growth trajectory was not. It's actually a fairly common story where it's you get that product fit right, and then a lot of the other stuff will take care of itself.
Got it. So just going back to the initial part of your answer, you think what fueled kind of that initial ramp is you listen to your customers, you took feedback, and you baked it into the product. I mean, it kind of sounds simple, but I guess it's much tougher to implement. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, I mean, that's the secret sauce of product development overall, right? Like I tell people all the time when they ask about how we decide what to build or how do we prioritize, probably 95% of what we build is a direct result of customer feedback and the signal that we get. And we have lots of different ways that we get that signal, but it is, I think the mistake a lot of technology companies make in their early phase is they fall in love with their idea of how they're going to solve a problem. And they have this belief that customers, in their worldview, they'll buy their product in droves, and you won't be able to stop them. But the reality is, customers have their own worldview, and as a product owner and a product developer, our job is to really understand what the customer is trying to do, the challenges they face, and then how do we build product that really helps solve that problem and delight the customer along the way.
Yeah, that's a great segue, Gene. Let's move into what's the problem you're trying to solve. I mean, Smartsheet is a simple tool that can be configured in a lot of different ways. I think you guys have talked about 2,000 different use cases. When you boil it down, You're the chief product officer. What's the problem that this company is trying to solve?
I would say the real at its core, the problem we're trying to solve is we're trying to empower the average knowledge worker to really change and improve how they work. Right? If you think about the way work has evolved over the last couple decades, it really, all the investment and all the technology has really gone to solving for the 40% of work that's somewhat structured and repetitive in nature. 60% of work is unstructured and dynamic, which means for the most part it's done by humans doing what I call human workflow. And a lot of that human workflow is powered today by a knowledge worker that uses a static document or a spreadsheet or email or some other hand tool, if you will. And there's not really great tools that the knowledge worker has that allow them to actually add some structure, to configure, to innovate, to iterate. And that's really where Smartsheet comes in. And I think one of the things that really drove home the types of problems we solve, and it sounds really simple, but when I was still at Amazon, I remember getting a call, or actually an email from our finance department, because there was a large contract that we had gotten approval for from our CEO. It was literally hundreds of millions of dollars, multi-year contract. And this was 6 months after the fact. And they were calling me to say, hey, I need to get a copy of the email where you got approval for this spend because we need it for the audit. And I'm like, that's crazy. Companies managing those kinds of transactions in an email, right? And so you can just imagine there's so much of that still happens in that ad hoc way. And so what we try and do is we try and give the knowledge worker a platform that's really simple and easy to configure, can support thousands of different use cases, and we arm them with the constructs like forms to collect data from multiple sources, a dashboard to be able to create real-time visibility for everybody involved in the work so they can see what's happening and what needs to be done next, a really easy way to request input from people that are involved in the process, and that ability to track and manage and see what's happening where there's really clear ownership. And what we find that does for customers is it breaks down all the information silos that form within companies and organizations and gives them that real-time visibility to drive really good decisions quickly, and also keep work on track. And so, customers that use Smartsheet or teams that adopt Smartsheet can see anywhere from, on the low end, if they just keep doing the way they do things today, but just use some of our collaboration features, they might see a 15% improvement in productivity or efficiency. When they actually look at automating parts of the process and using us for approvals and update requests, they can see 30, 40, 50% improvements. And I've had customers tell me, look, when I implemented Smartsheet automation, I picked up 2 days of time a week. I was spending all my time trying to track what was happening and sending emails and asking for updates and going to status meetings. They deploy Smartsheet, and it's like suddenly I got Monday and Tuesday back, and now I can work on higher value things or innovate more or do whatever it might be.
Could we transition this to maybe getting a little flavor for what your products look like? I remember I visited your office about a year ago in Seattle, and you had an iPad, and you kind of just quickly showed how you have a dashboard of dashboards using your own product to manage your own company, and you guys have 2,000 employees. So would love to kind of get a peek of how you guys use Smartsheet.
Yeah, let me just share my screen here real quick, and I'll give you a feel for. Hold on to this 1 second. I just got to make sure I'm using the right. Okay, so can you guys see that?
Yep.
Okay, so what you're looking at is actually a product development dashboard. And this dashboard is something that we use as part of our weekly mechanism for managing everything we build in Smartsheet. And so this is literally a live dashboard, and it takes you through. This is the resources that we use. We start every meeting on Wednesdays with good news stories. We talk about what's happening. We then go into different action items from the previous week. We talk about feedback we get from customers. We have the ability to dive into support escalations and chronic issues. So for example, if I look at the dashboard for emerging support issues, I can go in and see what's happening, and then core into any one of these problems.
And but essentially, looking at how many total employees are touching this to fold up.
Well, our product development today is over 500 people. We organize in pillar teams for each of the different areas of the product. They have a set of goals that they own. They have updates that go into this. So this is a shared dashboard that's fed by different project plans and sheets and other systems. So it really allows you to kind of bring everybody together and keep folks on the same page. In our particular process, we actually work through this every Wednesday morning. We spend 90 minutes as a team together going through kind of a regular mechanism of measuring how we're doing against our goals, understanding where customers are experiencing issues, surfacing and talking about problems. A big part of this meeting is actually providing a forum for teams to elevate either insights that they have that can improve the customer experience, or where we might have a problem or an issue that we need to go solve. And so this, I would say, is kind of what I call a core glue mechanism for our business. And it's just one example where we use all the different elements of Smartsheet. Embedded in this is our bug tracker, which has there's a form process that goes in and brings that forward. We use here's an example of our different pillar goals. So these are goals that we've taken around different products that we're going to launch. You can see we've got a couple that this morning we called as red because we found a late breaking bug, and so those are going to move back a couple of weeks. But just gives you and then we go through what do we launch at Engage. We talk about things that are unhealthy and how do we go focus on those.
Got it.
We talk about cross-pillar initiatives, and then we go down into our release roadmap, right? And so in our release roadmap, you can actually update or submit new things, or you can click through and actually see our this is everything that we're launching this year. Each card represents a different pillar and a different product capability. And
thank you for sharing that. That's super interesting.
Yeah. I'm sure my name would be sharing all this, but anyway.
Well, let's step back. I'd love to hear your thoughts on kind of pandemic-created, digitization. So some tools have become unanimous because of this, the pandemic, right? So tools such as Zoom and Microsoft Teams, Slack, but those tools are also limited to simple message and file sharing. So how does Smartsheet fit into this equation? How can people get a deeper collaboration with your products?
Well, I think what we find is with work from home and remote work and distributed work, I mean, Smartsheet's really built for that type of a use case. And so it's interesting when you think about the pandemic and everybody went to work from home. One of the questions we got from a lot of our investors and analysts was, do you think this is you're going to see a massive surge in the use of Smartsheet? And I would say initially we didn't view it that way. We saw it as, we are great at supporting distributed teams. We're great at helping teams all stay on the same page, stay on track. And so I think the move to remote work is a good long-term trend for us. But in the short term, I think what we experienced was companies were going through this kind of massive adjustment period, right? Suddenly everybody's working from home. We've got to shift everything from this blend of in-person meetings and travel and customers to everybody's working from their home office every day in Zoom. And I think a lot of companies did two things. They focused on how do I get folks up and running, being able to just communicate, which is where you saw the growth of things like Zoom and Teams and Slack. And I think second, they did a pretty deep assessment of am I going to survive? And what am I, is my company going to be okay? Are my customers going to be okay? What's going to happen here? And I think as they went through that adjustment period, I think they were very much focused on trying to not do anything that was going to impact their survival if they were on a track there. So I think I think we saw a kind of a pause in customers moving forward with some things. Our growth rate slowed a little bit for a period of time, and then I think what we've seen is once folks kind of got through we've got everybody talking, we've gotten into this workflow, we're now seeing kind of an uptick in demand and desire for what are the tools I need to have to arm my remote workers to be as productive from home as they were before, where they could just go grab a group of people and jump in a conference room. And what we find is like having a system to actually manage the execution of your work and see who's working on what when, and having a way to get folks together and collaborate even when they're not in the same room is really powerful. And so we think we're part of that toolbox, and we don't have a belief that there's any one tool that people are going to spend their entire life in, right? I mean, just look at history, right? You might spend a lot of time in email. You're going to spend a lot of time in messaging. We have a lot of customers that spend a lot of time in Smartsheet, but those are different tools for different reasons, and they all have to work kind of well together. And so that's kind of how we approach it.
Interesting. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. And it reminds me of your user conference, which I attended 3 weeks ago. You guys have an annual user conference called Engage.
Yes.
Last year, you had 4,000 people attend in Seattle. I attended, and I noticed it was amazing how everyone came from all different walks of life and parts of the country. And then this year you had it virtually, and the kind of initial point that you shared was that you had 50,000 attendees. So you went from 4,000 to 50,000. That's just pretty exciting itself. I'd love to hear kind of your thoughts on how that changes the world. But you also had 2 pretty big product announcements.
We did.
With your big team. Could you share kind of what you've announced?
Yeah, well, actually, in fact, I just shared a link into the WhatsApp channel so we can play the video. I neglected to send that earlier, but we announced a number of. I mean, we probably had 20 different announcements over the course of the day, but a couple of things that really resonated with customers. One is a new product called Work Apps, which is a video that's in the link, and Work Apps is really designed to help these take the processes and the workflows that they build in Smartsheet and really convert them into no-code applications for their teams to be able to use to manage workflow in a more streamlined way and a more robust way that makes it, let's call it, less brittle. And this is one where we've already had 1,000 customers sign up for the preview. And those 1,000 folks have already built over 1,000 apps. So we're really excited about it. And is it possible to share to play the video for the group?
I think someone's on it, but if it's easier, maybe you could just screen share it.
Yeah, I can screen share it as well. Let me just do that.
So, while you do that, it's interesting. You guys have expanded into the no-code area. I guess your tool could be called a low-code tool itself. And then you also have been developing a robotic process automation light type of feature. So the product seems to be expanding into much kind of more complicated areas.
Yeah, the product is this is something where I talked about customer signal. This is something that we have kind of been dragged into, if you will, by customers. Drag's the wrong word, but we get a lot of customer signal around how they want to use our product. And when we hear that signal, what they told us is, hey, we're actually configuring this to solve much higher value use cases, and we need constructs to make it more robust, less brittle, help me manage workflows across systems, give me a way to package this so I can actually create a more curated experience for my users. And so Work Apps actually came from signal we heard from customers. We actually talked about it last year. There was a customer called Selena, which is an Israeli company that offers adventure travel. And most of their travel lodges are around surfing. They're actually in Latin America. And they actually had built this solution in Smartsheet for running all of their properties. and what their end users saw was actually just a dashboard.
Mm.
And all the constructs and the kind of the application layer underneath was all run in Smartsheet, but then they only surfaced the dashboard to their end users. And this really told us, hey, this is a problem here. We need to find a way to abstract this away. And that's actually what was the inspiration for Work Apps. I think I saw on the channel they're ready to go ahead and share it if we
Great. Great.
please play. Well, maybe not. Sorry.
It might be easier if you just screen share it yourself.
Yeah. I'll go ahead and I have it up, or actually I'll just play it up on YouTube here. Hold on a second. What I worry about is you might not be able to hear the sound, but we'll try. Oh, that's the wrong.
There we go.
Sorry, I showed the wrong one. Let me get the right tab here.
While you share that, I guess the customer journeys that led you into this was.
Business today requires greater coordination than ever before across people, workflows, and systems. You are working with different stakeholders inside and outside of your organization that need to engage in different ways. It might be getting updates on a project from your team, cross-functional collaboration with another department, or sharing program updates with executives through a dashboard. The key is
That's very exciting, Gene. Thanks for sharing. I'm looking at the time. Before we end, I just want to make sure that for those who are not Smartsheet users, you could just give them a little bit of where can they start? I think you guys have a great customer success team and an online kind of enrollment. So maybe we could just end with that.
Great customer success team. I would say, if you'd like to learn more, just come to smartsheet.com. And we have a 30-day free trial, so you're welcome to sign up, check it out, give it a try, and appreciate you having me on today.
All right. Thank you, Gene.
Thanks, guys.